Noi faremo una chiacchierata un po' in inglese e un po' in italiano, perché vorrei condividere con voi il tipo di innovazione che in questo caso è un'innovazione più di mindset, come diceva Cosimo, dobbiamo cambiare anche i modelli, quindi è un'innovazione più di modello e di approccio al mercato, che comprende concetti come il sharing e la community, e il loro così arrivo sul mercato in diversi paesi europei sta cambiando il modo in cui la gente intende il rapporto con l'automobile. Intanto grazie, thank you very much to be here with us today. It's a real pleasure. And so, tell what Lynk Co is, because I don't think everybody knows about it. So let's start to give them what is behind the idea of this new business model that you launched on the market, and it is having quite an interesting success in different European countries.
Ok, thank you. Well, primo, scusi che mi italiano è molto malo, allora preferisco parlare in inglese, credo che è meglio per me, ma anche è meglio per voi. So, yeah, Lynk Co, I've been in the car industry for 36 years. I'm almost as old as I look. And I have learned that in this industry that is so sexy and innovative from the outside, it's pretty boring from the inside, and I think the car industry has been doing the same thing for a century. We design, engineer cars, we build them in our big factories, and then we ship them to dealers and they sell and fix them, which I find shocking in a society where things are changing at a pace that we've never seen and I've never seen before. So it's a super exciting world out there, and what is the car industry doing? Nothing, making better cars. So I had the chance to create a new brand, and I thought the last thing this world needs is another car brand. What this world needs is more efficient mobility. And arriving here yesterday in Milan, Göteborg is a sort of a dream country where everything is quiet and there's no traffic, and then you arrive in Milan and you think, shit, you don't need more cars. So
every morning Milanese, so they think the same.
Yeah, I can imagine. So my intention was to really start a brand that, even though we have a car, we use the car differently. I find it fascinating that in 2023, the majority of people across the world still think they need to own a car, which I think is absolutely not necessary. So we basically said, yeah, we have a car, but let's use it differently. Let's use the car when you need it. 96% of the time, the average car on this planet stands still, which is a shocking statistic. So, and so I wanted to change that. I got very, very fed up. I have 23 and 28-year-old children who are very sustainable. They asked me 7 years ago, what have you done your whole life? And the sad conclusion and answer was, I sold cars, which didn't make me feel very good. And I got very fed up lately that the car industry suddenly, all we say, we are sustainable, which is so bullshit. And the only thing that has become sustainable is that we have electric cars. And why do we have electric cars? Because Elon Musk has shown the world how to do electric cars. Otherwise, we would still be selling petrol cars. So I thought, let's change this. Let's have a contract where you basically use the car where you need it, but you also share the car. I very much believe that one of the solutions, not all, but one of the solutions to tackle mobility is sharing. And we're lucky because one of the key trends that I am fascinated by in Europe, in US and China is this global trend that people spend more money on doing things rather than buying things. So people care less about possession and care more about experiences. Yeah. So, and the good thing about that trend is that if you care less about what you own, you're ready to share it. If I would have sit in this room 20 years ago and told you there's a new company that will allow you to share your house with a stranger, you would have looked at me like, are you crazy? And today Airbnb is a very normal thing. So there is something happening. So we said, use the car when you need it, share the car as much as possible and create an experience. That's what we're trying to do. That's what I started in 2015, leaving the car industry and starting alone at that day. And it's not an easy journey, but I think it feels good to start something that I think is.
And your kids are happy about it?
My kids are, yeah, look, my kids, my kids are 24 and 28. They don't have a driver's license, which is a normal trend. In my case, it's a revolution against the father, probably. When my son enters my car, and I tell him, look, you have 320 horsepower and you have 600 Newton meter torque, they look at me like, what are you talking about? The only thing they want to know is, do you have Wi-Fi? And that's the new customer. So we try to be relevant to the new customer, the petrol heads, the car freaks. It's a dying species, and they end up working for car companies, and we all talk to ourselves. So I create a lot of new friends in my new job, but I also create a lot of new enemies, and I think that's probably a good sign.
Yeah, that is what I want to all the innovators, because they are changing the rules, they are disruptive, and when you change the rules, there is also some people that is afraid of changing rules. Quello che Alain ha condiviso con noi fino adesso è lui ha detto riflettiamo su questo fatto che le automobili normalmente non si muovono, cioè la vita media in un'automobile la passa parcheggiata. When you buy a car you buy a parking device, not a mobility device, e quindi un modo per cercare di ridurre questo gap tra l'automobile che sta ferma occupando dello spazio spesse volte pubblico è quello di fare leva sul sharing. In questo poi rientrano tutta una serie di considerazioni anche di tipo di sostenibilità. Ma Lynk Co ha fatto qualcosa di più che un semplice sharing. Ha portato, you brought on the market a new model in order to make easier for the people to approach the concept of renting a car and possibly sharing it. You can be member of a Lynk Co community even without the car, because you join the community in order to have the possibility to use the cars that the others are sharing. And if you want, you can even buy the car, because it's quite a nice car. But the concept of the main innovation, I think, in terms of the market approach is the fact that you can rent the car without down payment, without time limits. You pay your monthly rent, including everything, the car and all the services, and when you need it, you keep it. When you stop doing it, you just finish your contract. And this is changing a lot, because the long-term renting market before was quite static, and this is changing. And you have quite a success, because your main markets in Europe are Holland, and Italy is the second market, so that's been something. Sono sicuro che le avete viste girare le 01, i Lynk Co, eccetera. E quindi i numeri stanno crescendo. Let's go back to the need to, rethink the mobility, mostly in urban areas. Lynk Co did recently a research in different European cities, analyzing which are the needs and the desires of the people who live in major European cities. What message comes out from this research?
Yeah, I think it's quite fascinating that I think people want change, and even in Italy, people want change. I was so surprised when we launched in 2020, and I was here in Milan. I remember some of the traditional car journalists telling me, Alain, this will not work in Italy. It will never work in Italy. In Italia, the car is a religion, and you cannot change that. And here we are, and it's not true. People are using our model, and I find it also quite fascinating that the sharing business in the car industry is very premature. It's very, very low. And you may have noticed that a lot of the sharing companies are being bought by the car manufacturers. and then the car manufacturers spin it off or sell it or close it, and because they say it's not working, which is of course a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you are a car manufacturer, your KPI, your number one KPI is sell more cars. And the more you share cars, the less you sell cars. So they are, and we are, I think, are proving that sharing works. 15% of the Italian users of Lynk Co share their car, which we think is quite promising, and it goes up every month. So yeah, we are very happy with what is happening in Italy. For me, Italy is the proof that even in a car where in a country where the car is so integrated in the culture of a country, that even there we see people just want to change. We see that the younger generation, they don't see spending 30,000 euros on a car. They don't see spending 500 euros for the next 36 months because they don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. They don't see the car. Look, when I'll never forget, I told a story yesterday. I did a lecture in London, and a journalist asked me, and he said, "Alain, you're making one big mistake. You don't realize that the car is the number one symbol of freedom." But when I talk to my sons and I say, car is a sign of freedom, they say, no, it's the opposite of freedom. It's a limitation of freedom, because where do I park it? Where do I service? Where do I service it? It's a car limits my freedom. So all the ideas that I had when I turned 18 of what a car stands for, the younger generation of today almost see the opposite. So I think there is an opportunity to do something different. And I don't want to make it sound easy, but it's easy to do something different in the car industry because everybody does the same. And I don't see the threat coming, or the opportunity coming from the car industry. The car industry is only doing one thing, is making better cars. So the change will come from another industry. And my view is, and I think the professor also mentioned it, the future is mobility as a service, and it's happening today. I've been saying for 10 years the car industry needs to decide, do you want to be Boeing or do you want to be Lufthansa? And all of them, including Tesla, have decided they want to be Boeing, which I think is a phenomenal mistake. Because already today, you don't fly to Paris with Boeing, you fly to Paris with Air France. You don't take a Toyota Prius to the city center, you take an Uber, except in Milano. You take an Uber to the city center.
It's another issue. We're working on it.
So the service brands are taking over from the product brands. And my long-term vision for Lynk Co is to be a service brand with a product instead of a product brand with a service.
Okay. You said that you mentioned the younger generation to underline the fact that the mindset is changing. But I don't think the average customer of Lynk Co, it's young. It's probably a bit older. So this means also for older generations, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's people that are young of mind. You are an example. So it's.
Thank you, my friend.
So I think, look, I turned 60 2 weeks ago, so I feel very young. So I think that our target customer are people who just are part of this new young mentality. Our average age of our customers today, I think, is 42. The average age of a car buyer in Europe is 55, believe it or not, 55. So the average age of our customers is younger, but we have 25-year-olds and we have 75-year-olds. So it's a mindset thing, and we see that changing. And the percentage of people who really want to buy a car is still the majority, but it is shrinking. It's shrinking very quickly.
That's also interesting by a demographic point of view, you know. And we have a few more minutes. What I want to ask you, you said your vision is to become a service company in order to give mobility to people, not cars. But at the same time, your cars are full of technology. And can you tell us more about how you see the evolution of them, of the vehicle itself? Why which are the characteristics for a vehicle to become a vehicle that it's that you can sell as a service, not as a good?
Yeah, so when it comes, so first of all, I agree with what the other professor also said. The solution of mobility is not better cars and better way of using cars, but it's a micro-modality. It's using micro-mobility, public transportation, train, and cars, not just making car transportation better. I fully agree with that. The car itself, first of all cars will be electric. Whoever doubts that is naive or stupid or both. It's just going to happen. The whole discussion on e-fuels is as stupid as it gets, and it's of course driven by Porsche in Germany, who want still cars to be vroom vroom, want to have the noise, but it's not going to happen. So cars will be electric. Electrification for the car industry, for mobility, for me, is a small thing. It's just another machine under the hood. The big change will happen with autonomous drive. And I find it fascinating that a lot of car companies think that autonomous drive is going to be a revolution because you can read the newspaper while you're driving. The reality is that the future of mobility, for me, will be that 80% of current car buyers will have an app, and it's basically like an Uber without a driver. And if you need a car, you're going to use the app, and you go to the city, and you go back. Suddenly, there's going to be way less cars, way less cars. Cities are going to look better. It's going to be more parks, more. It's a better world, and it's more efficient transportation. I think in the future, the volume brands, as we call them, sorry to say, you know them all, including some Italian brands, they're going to suffer. And they're going to be suppliers to service brands. And then you will have I like to call them the toys for boys, the Ferrari, Lamborghini, Porsche. And I think in 2050, there will be petrol. It's going to be cool to have a petrol car and really look.
Like today, having an horse.
Yeah, and like today, you have to really look in Italy for a charging station. In 2050, you're going to have to look for a petrol station.
Right.
And it's going to be cool to drive a Porsche with a petrol engine. I always made a comparison with exclusive watches. The world of exclusive watches has never boomed as much as in the last 10 years. Nobody needs a watch. You have the microseconds on your smartphone. But people buy expensive watches. And the same will happen with cars. You will buy Porsche, Ferrari, and it's almost like a status symbol. And all the rest, a lot of the rest of transportation, I believe, is going to be service. And the car manufacturers will be under massive cost pressure because these service brands will buy the cars, whoever offers them at the cheapest rate. And they will all be super tech, software-driven, autonomous drive, safe, high-tech. So that's how I see the future. But that's going to take another 20 years.
Yeah, well, maybe you never know what's going to happen also in terms of technology. And talking about that, I mean, Lynk Co started as a startup. Now it's a bigger company, we can say a scale-up. And in Europe, around Europe, other startups are flourishing, like copycatting the Lynk Co business model. And also there are startups, even the 16 we have here, with new technologies that can be interesting. Which is your vision of the startup world? So you look at them, you work with them?
I admire them, and I encourage them, and I hope many of them will succeed. Because as I said, the change will not come from the car manufacturers. They are too arrogant and they're too much asleep. They just make their cars better, and the revolution will come from the service businesses. And I hope that a lot of these startups will become big organizations, because that's the future. Look, if you see where the big brands of today started, they were also startups in the beginning, small companies. So I think that's going to be the future, because it's not going to happen from the big players today. They are too arrogant, and that's not going to be the change. So I do not see these people as competition. I really admire them. I encourage them to never give up, because if there's one thing I've learned in this business, there's always more reasons not to do something different. But if there's one enough reason to do it, just never give up. Because if it's the right thing, I think at the end it will work.
Yeah, well, never give up is the message. for all young entrepreneurs. Thank you very much, Alain. It was a real pleasure to have you here. Stay with us, please, so we can have a chance to have a chat also in the networking session, and you can see also the startup showing here that will be very important for them.
Thank you. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Alain.